Hi guys, and welcome to this video where we're going to be talking about how to choose a code editor for coding with Python. This video is not going to discuss how to install a code editor, only how to choose one and some of the pros and cons to think about. I do have a link in the description to a free document which goes through the installation process of several code editors, so check that out if you want. What makes me qualified to talk to you about a code editor? Through my online courses on Skillshare, I've taught almost 30,000 students how to program using Python. There are two questions that are always asked, and rightly so because they're related to how to get started with Python. And those two questions are, how do I install Python? And what code editor should I choose? Another question I always get asked is, what is a code editor? In this video, I hope to answer these questions and in turn help you get up and running with Python as quickly as possible and with as little friction as possible. Because I know for new developers, the installation or the setup of Python and a code editor is one of the biggest hurdles to getting started. Before we talk about code editors, let's get some terminology out of the way. When writing code, it's common to write in either a code editor or an integrated development environment, or an IDE for short. So what's the difference? Well, there's a lot of differences and a lot of online debate. We're not going to get into that here. We're just going to talk about some very high level differences. An IDE is usually a large piece of software that consists of several tools in one. PyCharm, Microsoft's Visual Studio, and Spider, which comes with the Anaconda installation, are all examples of IDEs. For the most part, an IDE will have a code editor with syntax highlighting and auto-completion, help build, execute, and debug your code, help with source control. Because IDEs are designed to do so much, they can involve big downloads and need lots of storage capacity. There can also be a bit of a learning curve with many of them. Code editors are in theory a much simpler tool. A code editor can be a basic text editor with syntax highlighting and code formatting. Because they have a smaller feature set than IDEs in theory, they have a smaller download time and storage requirement. They also start up faster and are in general more lightweight. Modern code editors have the ability to run code and help with debugging such as typos and highlighting unused variables, amongst other things. Some code editors will help you with source control. So you really are getting a lot in a much smaller package, or a much smaller lightweight package. So now you know the high level difference between an IDE and a code editor. Let's discuss how to choose one. The first code editor I want to discuss is not a code editor at all. Instead, it's an installation of Python. Again, coming back to the start, one of the most common questions I get is how to install Python. So the first option I want to talk about here is installing Python using Anaconda. Anaconda is the world's most popular data science platform, but don't let that scare you off. It's not just for data scientists. It has become one of the go-to sources for those who want to learn Python with an option that is easy to install and set up. Anaconda is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. When you install Anaconda, the installation also includes multiple libraries and packages to help you on your coding journey. One such package is the Jupyter Notebook, which we'll talk about in a moment. There are 3 editions of Anaconda: the Individual Edition, the Team Edition, and the Enterprise Edition. The Individual Edition, which is Anaconda's free Python distribution, is for solo Python developers, researchers, and students who are working on their own. So downloading and installing Anaconda is a great option to get started. It gives you a Python installation and it's usually a fairly up-to-date version of Python. So for example, 3.7, 3.8, or whatever one of the most recent versions of Python is. It works across multiple operating systems, Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's free in the Individual Edition. And when you install it, as I said, you automatically get Python, but you also get several software packages or applications. One of them being the Jupyter Notebook. The Jupyter Notebook is an open source application that runs locally on your computer. This means you do not have to be connected to the internet to use it. You can use Jupyter to create and share documents that contain real code, which in our case is Python. So when you open up the Jupyter Notebook, you can create a new notebook within it, and you write code and text in what are called cells. And these are basically editable blocks of code, or text. One of the many advantages of Jupyter is that you can write code in a cell and then run that code immediately to see its output. So you can have 1 plus 1, hit enter, and that code, the result will be 2 obviously, but you'll see that right there in front of you. So real-time feedback or real-time output in Jupyter. Very, very handy and very powerful if you were just starting off and learning the basics of Python. Jupyter is used by data scientists and data analysts because the notebook format allows you to tell a story within your code. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're working on a large data set, for example, weather patterns, you can have all the data in your notebook. You can then code that data, so to give you what the weather is for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, historical data, and future predictions. You can have all that data in your notebook. You can write code around the data and see the output there and then, such as creating temperature graphs. A very powerful tool when you're working with large amounts of data. And as you learn Python and go on to different areas of Python, such as data science, you'll see that an awful lot of data science development in Python is in the Jupyter Notebook because it allows you to create a narrative around data using Python. Inside the notebook, you can also style your text and add images much like you can in a Word document. Jupyter Notebook is a fantastic tool for learning Python and for data science. It's free and you can run your code immediately. You can also share your notebook with other developers. Where Jupyter Notebook starts to fall down is when you begin to work with classes, modules, and methods. Importing modules, methods, and libraries from different Python files can become difficult and a bit cumbersome, and you can quickly lose your way. That's the only downside I see, and I should caveat everything that I say here in this video. It's as I see it or I use it, so that's the only downside I really see with Jupyter Notebook. Now let's talk about Visual Studio Code, which is not to be confused with Microsoft's Visual Studio, the IDE. Visual Studio Code, also from Microsoft and also known as VS Code, is a feature-rich code editor available for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows platforms. It's small and lightweight, but full-featured. VS Code is open source, extendable, and configurable for almost any task. Installing Python in VS Code is very easy. There's a marketplace. You simply go there, click a button, and install Python. Once Python is installed, VS Code will recognize your Python installation and libraries automatically. When you're in VS Code, you can also select the version of Python you want to work with. So if you have Python 2.7, Python 3, Python 3.6, Python 3.8 installed, you can select in the bottom left-hand side of Visual Studio Code what version of Python you would like to run with. I have found VS Code suitable for 99% of my programming needs, or my Python programming needs. It is a very, very good tool, lightweight and free. And it has excellent support for source control, such as integrating with Git and GitHub. Another option is one that comes with the install of Python, which is called IDLE, Integrated Development and Learning Environment, IDLE. This code editor comes when you download and install Python directly from python.org. It's free, very lightweight, and very easy to use. IDLE is great if you've never coded before and want something quick and easy that comes with your Python installation. As you advance in programming, you'll learn that IDLE is that little bit too simple and features are a little bit limited. A lot of developers keep IDLE open as a backup code editor. So for example, if I'm coding in VS Code and I'm working away and then a thought comes to me and I just want to test out a small piece of code without interrupting my main program, I'll jump into IDLE, type in my code there, run it, and see what the output is. Then I might work on that code in my main code editor. Again, IDLE comes with Python when you install it directly from python.org and is a great small lightweight code editor to get you up and running. Next, let's talk about Sublime. Sublime is fantastic. You might even say it's sublime if that wasn't just a horrific pun. Sorry for that. It's free to download and use, but Sublime does ask you to register and pay if you are going to use it for an extended period of time or for commercial use. Sublime is lightweight and easy to use. I would wholeheartedly recommend it as your primary Python code editor. It is so simple. It has syntax highlighting and allows you to embed the terminal in its application window so you can see the output of your code without moving into a different window. Very handy and very productive. For me, one of the big drawbacks of Sublime is the fact that you cannot take user input in your programs. So for example, if I create a program that says, "What is your name?" and it waits for the user to respond, Sublime does not allow that input. You'll have to open up that program in a separate terminal window. If you're on a Windows system with an up-to-date version of Python installed, then getting up and running with Sublime is very easy. If you're on a Mac, it's a little bit more tricky because all Macs come with an old version of Python installed and Sublime first goes there to run Python. So you might have default version of Python on your Mac, which I think is 2.7, but you have 3.6 installed or Python 3.6 installed, that's what you want to run with. So there's a small little bit of configuration in that. Again, if you're interested in how to set up Sublime on a Mac, do check out the free document which I've linked to in the video description. Finally, I want to talk about Repl, or EPL. Now, this is not a code editor or an IDE, it's an in-browser IDE to code in 50 plus languages without spending a single second on setup. So what does this mean? Well, you set up an account, you log in, select your programming language, and that's it. You start writing in that programming language. And I cannot overemphasize enough how much of a big step that is. To the new developer who wants to install Python, have a code editor, and simply write what they see in a book or in a tutorial or in an online course. They just want to write it into the screen, hit enter or hit run, and see the output. This is a major leap forward. And for beginners, it's just without equal. Now, I'm not paid by Repl to say this, I just think it's a fantastic tool. Repl offers a free tier for basic features. For most developers is more than enough. There is a paid tier which provides features like always on and more storage and upload space. But for the most part, the free tier will do. Again, I cannot praise Repl enough as a development tool for Python for the reason that there is zero setup involved. Just go to Repl.it and sign up for an account, select Python, and you're good to go. For me, using Repl is a game changer. I can just connect to the internet, sign into Repl, and pick up where I left off no matter what. No configuration, no anything, no worrying about code editor, software updates to my code editor, it doesn't matter. And for the new developer, this is very, very important, as I know from questions from students. When you log into Repl, you get a code editor and a console to view your output. There's a file manager, version control, package manager, database manager, and unit test manager. You can also export your files, and you can share your files via generated URLs. Again, I'm not paid by Repl to say any of this, I just think it's an amazing piece of software. The reduced friction to getting started with Python, to me, is worth the fact that it's in the browser. So that's a summary of some of the common code editors out there. But which one do you choose? Well, before you make that decision, always ask yourself this question. What are you trying to accomplish? What do you want to do with your Python code? Are you writing Python that you want text and images with it to give your code a narrative? If so, use Jupyter Notebook. Are you working on data science or data analysis? Again, Jupyter Notebook. Are you looking for a reliable code editor with additional features such as version control? If so, then Microsoft's Visual Studio Code is the one to go with. Or are you looking for a lightweight code editor that's easy to use? Then Sublime would be a good choice. For me, if you're looking for zero setup, zero install, and zero confusion about what version of Python you're using, Repl is the way to go. But that's not for everybody. There are online wars and debates that will go on forever about which code editor to use and which IDE to use. And to be honest, I'm not really interested in that. Your code editor is a tool. And whatever tool you need that does the job correctly and efficiently is the right tool for you. You don't just have one screwdriver in your toolbox. You have several, each one for a specific job. And so it is with code editors. Different code editors for different programming jobs. So I hope this video helped in choosing a code editor, or at least made it a little more simple. If you would like more videos like this one, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you would like to try any of my Python courses for free, there is a 2-week free trial link in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.